And today we are joined by the mayor, and I believe we're going to be joined by some city councilors to give us an update on the legislative branch of your city government. So we've been doing these weekly virtual town halls at the mayor's office and hoping it's helping people connect with their local government and the ability to ask questions about things happening during the pandemic. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to the mayor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. These town halls have been really informative for me to get questions in real time, and would really appreciate and welcome any suggestions about who you guys would like to see on our town hall. I want to just thank everyone in the community for donating masks and supplies to our public safety for the public, folks out there helping us to get more signs made. It's so appreciative. It's so appreciated by all of us at City Hall and the public safety complex. And it's really helping us keep our employees safe, but also to get those masks out to the public. The subject of masks, we're really transitioning to a new word and a new concept with masks, and that's face coverings. So the idea of a medical mask, the N95s that we hear, members of the public, we need for the best interests of our first responders and essential employees to shift to beautiful face coverings. And I say beautiful, I've actually gotten a couple that are quite lovely. And the people who are making those masks, thank you so much. You know, the Western Mass Mask Project is out there. Folks who are just dropping them off or sharing them with the neighbors. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we need more of them, and we're going to need more. Face coverings are definitely a part of not only flattening the curve, but keeping the curve flat. And that's really, the face coverings is about protecting others around you, because it stops or severely inhibits the outflow of the virus to us all. I've said a couple of times on the media, and I'm going to say it here, I have never in my life, nor did I ever expect to have such anxiety around sunny weekends. And when I see sun in the forecast and see the bike path and the promenade and just our streets and folks without masks, voluntary masks, on a sunny day, which of course feels great after we're all staying at home, it just speaks to the danger that still exists on our street, and danger that we're presenting to our neighbors, to our family members. So please, if you are in doubt about covering your mouth, then just cover your mouth with anything that you have available. I am happy to welcome members of the legislative branch of our government. I see City Council President Peg Conniff on the call as well. I thought I saw Owen Zarette on the call, and I'm going to hand it over to them. I just sent out an email with a typo, sorry, around multi-member bodies. Our committees, I see Jane on it, our chair of the Community Relations Committee, as well as Planning Board. Outside of City Council and those City Council committee meetings, I have canceled all meetings of that type through May 18th. We're still focusing on essential business of the city, but also we have started to have some technical glitches, not with the city accounts, but with multi-member boards meeting using their own Zoom accounts or the free public ones, with really really disturbing Zoom bombings. I think that's what they're called. So until May 18th, all of the multi-member boards are canceled for the city council meetings, and Also, the committee meetings, they still need to be posted at least 48 hours in advance in the typical places on the website, as well as there will be postings out on the outside of City Hall when we can do that. But I encourage people to take a look at the website to find out what City Council meetings are meeting and what the agenda is. I encourage all the chairs to, of course, get those agendas in at least 48 hours in advance, but certainly as soon as you have them and they're set at City Council meeting, would be really helpful to give everybody as much advance notice as possible. With that, I will hand it over to our City Council President, Peg Coniff.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everyone being here today and those who will be watching this recording later. I wanted to just give kind of an update of what we've been doing at the City Council level during the pandemic and how we are handling business. And initially, it was a bit of a challenge in that we are not set up, as you all can imagine, to do remote meetings. And part of the importance of the open meeting rule is that we allow public participation, and that has been a tremendous challenge and one that we are still wrestling with. And so for us, what we did initially, we held our first meeting without public participation, and all we handled during that meeting was new business, and we moved new business to committees just to kind of get a flavor for how to operate in a remote mode. Since that time, we have changed our video conferencing to Zoom. We were not originally set up for Zoom. So we are now allowing and are able to provide public access to our meetings. The challenge, however, is that it's not the same as having someone in the room with you and you don't feel their emotion and you don't really, it's not as interactive as we would like it to be. So we've kind of taken the direction of let's focus on those things that are critical to the operation of the business of the city and the efficient operation of what we need to get done in the short term, particularly those items that are around the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we have over the past several weeks been approving funding that the mayor has requested to move from one bucket to the other to isolate those expenses that are related to COVID. So some of those are the kinds of activities that we have been focusing on. We've also done some other financial activities that are critical as we move into the budget cycle, which is where we're getting to now. So we've been focusing on a lot of financial activity at the city council level. What we've also been doing is ramping up, and I know the mayor has had many sleepless nights getting ready for the budget. The budget will start to be fully discussed starting next month in May. So in many ways, we've been trying to clear the decks of some of our agenda items that were either easy or critical to COVID. And some of the other things that we have moved off of our agenda because we brought them to full vote were things like open consumption of alcohol. That's been something that the ordinance committee has been diligently working on since October, I think, of 2018. And it was ready to be voted on, and it was just an amendment. So we took care of that. We took care of changing a name of Easthampton City Arts Plus to Easthampton City Arts. We are actively still looking at the city charter. That's one of our priorities right now, is to get that essentially put to bed. That was a committee that formed in 2018, and they are, you'll remember that ranked choice voting and the 4-year term for mayor were voted in November. That came out of that charter committee. There are still some things that they recommended that we want to review and get those to the legislature, state legislature, for their approval. Certainly they first need to be approved by the mayor. So those are some things that we have moved a little bit to the top of the list to get taken care of, because there's certain statutory and time limits that we want to get taken care of. So those are some of the things we've been working on from a business perspective. But we also recognize that public participation is really critical in everything we do. We have to do everything publicly, and we want the input of our residents. So to that effect, there are some things that we know are really interesting to the residents of this city. And so we're going to push those off probably to the end of the summer, early fall, when we believe and hope that we will all be together again, because those conversations deserve to be together. Things like the dog park, we're not going to bring that up for a vote anytime soon because we want the public to actively participate. And quite frankly, Zoom is not perfect for that. So we're going to push that off probably, I think, till September. The plastic bag ordinance that Councilor Zaret and Councilor Rothschild brought up a month or two ago is also probably going to not gain any speed until later in the summer. Again, till we can have people weigh in and we're a little bit back to normal, although I'm not sure what normal will be after this. We also have some things that we do want to move forward, but again, it really is restricted by public access, but they are in committee and they will move forward in committee, but we won't bring them back to full council until we can really have good public access. So some of those things are the senior tax work-off program. That is an option that was introduced whereby we create protocols in the city where seniors who qualify can volunteer for activity in the city, at the library, in City Hall, in some of the other departments, as a way to reduce their tax bill. That is currently, we're putting together a committee of residents to think about how to do that. We actually need one more resident to volunteer, so if anyone out there would like to join that committee, please let us know. That we want to keep talking about. We don't want to move forward rapidly, but we do want to keep it on the radar because it is in committee and we can move on it, but we're not going to make any votes on it until we're sure that people have access to it. There's another issue around the CPA exemption for property owned by folks who qualify for low-income housing and seniors who qualify for moderate senior housing. That is another exemption from the CPA that would have to be voted on by the legislature in Boston. But again, we're doing the research on that to find out what that would mean, how we would have to put that together. So we have a number of things on our agenda that are tax related, and we don't want them to necessarily stop, but we do want input and we need people engaged. So we're going to move on them, but as I said, we're not going to get to the finish line without making sure that everyone has had a chance to weigh in. And then there's a host of cannabis-related ordinance activity that I know the ordinance committee is working on. But again, I don't anticipate that we would make any final votes on those until later in the year, hopefully. All of our meetings are they're on Zoom. They're on channel 193 live. They are now live streaming on YouTube, which is exciting because I know a lot of people don't have Charter, so they can see us live on YouTube, and then they're also recorded and available for replay. All of the information for our Zoom meetings is contained in the agendas for the meetings. So those are all posted on the city website. So anyone, please feel free to join our city council meetings, our committee meetings. We want you to participate. We want you to attend. They are thrilling to watch. And so hopefully you will find them as riveting as we all do. But there is business being conducted, and that business is something that you should all be aware of and you should participate in when you can. So I wanted to kind of give you that update of what we've been doing, why we're handling the business in the order that we're handling it. Nothing is being forgotten. We're just trying to handle those things that are critical to the now, and then get to the things that are really more related to the rest of us in the city at a later date when we can all participate. Oh, Mayor, you're on mute.
Okie dokie. Oh yeah, there we go. Thank you very much, President Khanna, for that overview. I do want to just mention one a committee that is intertwined with actually City Council, and that's the CPA Committee. And they are under the direction of Chair Dan Rist on the finance, and our Affordable Housing Partnership are looking at CPA housing money. So CPA is divided into buckets, and one bucket is housing, and looking at a housing relief, some kind of housing rental relief, and that's in the beginning discussions. And I do want, for those who are on the CPA but also know of this work, that is something, that's a great example of something very urgent that one of our multi-member bodies need to continue on to help the city stay thriving and to help our neighbors. President Khanna, I'll turn it back over to you. I don't know. I know that there are other city councilors on the call. I'm not sure if they'd like to speak or not. But I don't want to step on your legislative toes.
Yeah, I see Councilor Zaret there. Councilor Zaret, do you have anything to add?
No, sorry. Forgive me for not being on video. I didn't switch into my Zoom sweatpants from my regular sweatpants. No, I mean, I think what I'd like to add, first of all, is thank you for the exceptional leadership from the top down the city. Mayor, I've been sharing your COVID updates every day, or as much as I can. And I really appreciate you putting those out there and making sure that we're visible and transparent with the information to our residents around what's happening and being clear about that. And President Khanna, thank you. You've run exceptional meetings in the face of uncertainty, both in regards to when we're going to meet, how we're going to meet, and the technology that we're going to use. Honestly, most of my days are spent now just looking for better Zoom backgrounds for when I actually am on video. I have been trying my best to use my presence on social media to really disseminate the information that's been coming from the leadership of our city, as well as to make sure that the information I'm providing is accurate. So talking a lot with the mayor, talking with the health agent, talking with our city council president, asking questions. I agree with President Conniff that the council needs to be prudent in terms of continuing to be active and legislate around what's urgent and needed right now in light of the COVID pandemic, as well as keep the city running, but not put too many things to the forefront that really don't need to be addressed at this time, such as plastics ordinance. We're talking about a dog park. There's a variety of other issues that can definitely be pushed off. And I think that's one of the challenges right now, is kind of determining how things are going to be triaged, so to speak. So otherwise, I'm just trying to remain a source of information and stay in contact as best I can with the other leaders of the city, and trying to stay positive, trying to set an example, wearing a mask in public and being visible about that, and playing guitar a lot. So I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks so much for making these this kind of information available. It's great to see so many people here and participating. And of course, as always, thanks Easthampton Media for broadcasting the signal.
You're welcome, Owen. Did you want to just ask your question since you're on right now?
Oh, sure. I mean, the mayor touched upon it a little bit, and I have to say, probably 2-3 weeks ago when I went to Big E's, I was a little disheartened that the majority of people were not wearing masks, but now heartened that when I do go, for the most part, the people not wearing masks now are in the minority. I think that business in particular, and certainly the rest of the businesses in town, have done an exceptional job about appropriately demarcating the appropriate zones for physical and social distancing, as well as one-way aisles and such. And I think, again, our health agent, Bree, I don't see her on the call, but she's done an amazing job. I mean, she's working overtime. It's amazing the amount of work output that she's putting out there. So my question though is about masks, and I know you touched upon this earlier, but I really think that you can't reinforce too much the importance of these devices in conjunction with other appropriate things such as social distancing to really control the spread of the novel coronavirus in our community. And there was some discussion on social media about the bike path, and especially like you said, as it gets warmer out, you're going to see a lot more people congregating, and it's difficult to maintain those physical distances as we get more and more people out there. And I think there's kind of a myth of sorts that, well, if we're outside, we can't really catch this. And I don't think that's true. So Mayor, I guess maybe this is potentially reinforcement. I apologize because I know you did talk about it before, but it kind of is a passion of mine to make sure that people are appropriately protected. So Hugh, can you just touch a little bit again about why and it's important to wear masks in the open areas of the city? Oh, you're muted.
Unmuting.
I mean, for somebody who's not afraid to speak, it's amazing that I don't unmute myself. It's, I don't know, it's a new world. So around masks and this, and I will say that we're going to hear a little more about masks and or face coverings, and a lot of folks have been very concerned about, okay, it's really strongly suggested that we wear masks. They don't have masks, but of course you can use other things such as a bandana. I've seen some people use their the neck turtles and kind of bring those up. The important thing is to the nose and the mouth being covered, because as you breathe or sneeze, as you sweat, we have no clear indication of how those droplets, or I would say how far those droplets can spread. I myself, when I talk, I usually talk with my hands and they touch my mouth more than I ever realized. But also I get excited, and there's, you know, not to be too good, mouth spray, right? It just happened with the way I say my S's. And those droplets are enough for contagion to, you know, and to spread infection. The mask is very much about me, or face covering is very much about me containing the possibility of infecting others around us. I think a great example on the bike path is one, measure the bike path around, and it's, you know, not that wide, and certainly the lanes aren't 6 feet each, and it's very likely you're walking down the bike path and there are people on other sides of the bike, on either side of the bike path, and they're talking, feeling that they have physical distance, they don't have masks on, and I am going through with my dog Magnolia. I have a mask on, but I'm literally walking into a spray tunnel of saliva or sneezes. And that's what has to stop. We don't know enough about this virus to know that we are doing enough to stop it. Therefore, we got to do everything. And still, the best intervention, the best treatment, the best defense we have against the coronavirus is to stay home. Stay home. Walk your dog in your yard. Limit your shopping. And then part two, if you gotta get out, cover up. Like, stay home. Part two, cover up. There are some face coverings available for free at 50 Payson. But when you're looking more and more at what we're getting from the CDC and Mass.gov, the COVID-19 resource center, more and more, it's about covering up. I have gotten a lot of questions about why I have not mandated that. One, there's there's a lot of discussion about mandating people covering up a part of their a mouth without some support from the state. The Attorney General has gone both ways on this and is starting to clarify that. But candidly, my biggest concern around mandating is enforcement. I do not think that our public safety, our police, should be enforcing people to cover their mouths when there is conversations to have and everyone doing their part to stay home or covering up. And if we get to the point where there's a larger mandate, which is quite possible on a federal, state, and maybe even local level, we have failed. We have failed each other. And we have underscored the selfishness of each one of us, including myself, when last night, when I thought no one would be on the bike path, I went and walked my dog and I forgot my mask. And guess what? There were a couple other people on the bike path. So it's behavioral, but we do. When you walk out of your house and you're not covering your mouth, you are exposing anybody and everybody around you, and you will never know if you've infected them. And when you walk by somebody, you don't know if they have a respiratory condition. We will fail when masks are mandated. We will fail.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone that would like to comment on that particular item? We have a question in the chat, changing subjects. Is the City Council working on additional measures to support our local small business owners? Grants, tax incentives, using our rainy day funds? As an example, Springfield is having a program called Prime the Pump.
So from a City Council perspective, I am not aware of any activity specific to that. I know that the mayor has highlighted information around the help that small businesses can receive. I'm not actually familiar with Prime the Pump. I'm very interested to know more about that. Yeah. And so I'm gonna do some research, or whoever asked that question, if you can send me some additional information. But I can say that actively right now, the City Council is not focused on anything of that nature, but I would defer to the mayor, who's probably closer to the buckets of money that can be given out for some of those grants and things like that. Do you have any information on that, Mayor?
I do, and I think Northampton has a similar fund, and Amherst that has a downtown business district has also, we allocated money for such thing. Plainly, we don't have the money. We don't have that disposable income. We're struggling with keeping our city affordable. We're keeping, right now, our values and property, it's wonderful that they're going up, but so did our tax rate. The rainy day fund we have will be used to keep our core services in check, to avoid layoffs, to keep our staffing where they need. The budget letter I put out in January was level funded, which means no increase. All the department heads basically had to go back and figure out the money that they used last year to cover this year. We made some changes to the budget. You'll see that on May 6th when I bring it to City Council. The increases in the budget are very strategic, and you will see a budget with a total increase from last year less than 2%, well less than 2%. We did not expect our new growth to hit fiscal year 2021, and we also did not expect the state revenue to stay as high as they are. We did a lot of long-term planning over the last 3 years to sustain what we knew would happen with the economy, that everything goes up, goes down. No one anticipated this. Both Amherst, Springfield, and Northampton have additional sources of income and different tax structure that allows them to put money, disposable or discretionary money, and they have focused that money on supporting the small businesses or adding different departments, focuses. That is not something that Easthampton has done historically, and it is not something that Easthampton can afford to do in the face of a pandemic. We're buckling down every single dollar to keep our budget as whole as it possibly can. The buckets of money available to small businesses and what I like to call micro businesses, those with less than 5 employees, are available on different state and federal level. There are also some banks that have stepped up and created grants more than loans. So we're I'm trying. The biggest hope that I have to get a bucket of money for Easthampton small businesses right now, and we're waiting for guidance from the Treasury, U.S. Treasury Department, is a community block development grant. And if we are not an automatically eligible community for those block community development grants, but they're going to open to non-entitlement cities, and that money can be used to bolster what they're called, revenue replacement, and to help small businesses. And I don't think I need to tell anybody on this call. It is desperately needed, and I watch that site to wake up, to open up for cities like Easthampton every day.
Along the lines of small business, is there any type of coalition between local Hampshire County mayors, councilors to collaborate with each other and foster ideas to help support residents and small businesses?
Yes, so Western Mass mayors, with my role, Western Mass mayors are definitely in contact. We work together, share ideas. Also, we have, the county level planning commissions that have been very helpful. The Economic Development Corporation, very helpful, getting and accumulating all of the ideas and distilling it down to what makes sense for Western Mass. As a part of my role on the advisory board, the Economic Reopening Advisory Board, I'll be convening more formal stakeholder meetings with the elected officials, and this isn't limited to mayors, it's also with our state delegation, our state reps, and state senators. So we are literally driving to Boston together on the same page, same message, same resources, and that's been happening for a couple of weeks, and it will get stronger as information comes out from the state, and also our own data trends.
Mm-hmm. Next question we have is, what is the latest on the building inspector and homeowners being able to do projects around their house, outside, etc.?
So we put a hold on permits. Any permits work that was already permitted with a safety plan could continue. May 4th, both public and private construction projects can reopen. There's a backlog of building permits that the building inspector is going through now, and there is for private construction projects, putting on a deck or siding the house or whatnot, that you need a permit to start. There is a checklist, a safety checklist that private homeowners, private contractors doing that sort of work need to sign off on. For bigger construction projects, things with One Ferry Street, the school, River Valley Market, we have a more stringent guidelines due to just the number of people who work on those jobs, and each project needs to create a safety and health plan that's quite extensive. Submit it to the building inspector. It is reviewed by the Board of Health and myself, and the building inspector commented upon, sometimes edited, sometimes not. and then signed off on. And we have a routine kind of checks of all the projects, just checking in, and people are following those safety and health plans. I believe the checklist, and I call it like an assurance agreement for the smaller projects, is on the building inspector page now, and you can take a look at that.
Okay, Owen Zarrett has a follow-up if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Mayor, yeah, thanks again for putting that policy in place. I think it was important to protect the safety of all our residents and especially our workers on our projects. So just to clarify, so May 4th, I've had a couple constituents reach out to me specifically about outdoor projects, pools. May 4th, the building inspector will review the backlog of applications and then start granting applications. Is that correct?
Yeah, and he's May 4th, yes. Because of the backlog, he's started that process already. So it's basically, he's gone back to the date that they were filed but not approved, and is going through one by one and making sure that the additional paperwork is done. And certainly, you know, if he's listening, his ears are burning. And if folks have held off on filing permits or doing projects, then, you know, put the permit in, start the process.
Okay, well, may the 4th be with him.
Oh, that's right. Yes. I'm very excited. Oh, thank you, Councilor Sarah, for the reminder.
Anytime.
I'm going to skip a question just to go along the same topic. When do you expect those larger construction projects to resume with the new safety plans, like the new school?
Yeah. So the new school is already remobilizing. There was equipment that came off of the site when I shut it down. And so you'll see some activity, I don't know today, but the other day they were, you know, bringing back the big equipment, earth moving and concrete mixers and stuff like that. So you're going to see, or may have seen, activity. And then May 4th, it goes ahead full steam and back on track.
Okay. Next question is, do local businesses have the right to deny entrance to someone not wearing a mask?
It's a private business. So it's almost like, you know, the signs you see, which is related to health, on any, you know, especially food or beverage establishment, you know, no shoes, no shirt, no service, no face covering, no service. And it's up to them to, you know, they can say, no, you don't have a face covering, you won't come in. If somebody doesn't comply and becomes, you know, non-compliant with that request, then it would be like a trespassing, like, you know, if somebody didn't have a shirt on, and you could call the police and they would be trespassed. It's not necessarily something, it's not a new thing just to face coverings, but think about it as shirts and shoes.
Okay, and related to that, could you clarify the policy on people working at these businesses to follow wearing masks?
They should be wearing masks. So if you're an essential business and you're an employee, you should have a face covering on. If you're working with food, it needs to be a mask. And if there's a concern, we've been finding a couple of businesses for not following that. I hope it doesn't get to the place, the point that we shut them down, because these are essential businesses for our community, but we will. And if you see a business, an employee in one of these essential businesses that aren't wearing a mask, or at the very least face covering, reach out to the health department, and Bree and our chair of the local board of health, Maggie Hebert, will be on it.
All right. Someone commented, just to clarify, CDC guidelines are that masks are recommended in situations where physical distancing is not possible or practical. They are not necessary at all times when going out. I'm assuming that's related to the bike path conversation we had.
Yeah. So I'm not going to disagree with the CDC, but I would say that that statement at this point is extremely loose and has more to do with an answer that can apply to the whole country and maybe parts of the country that aren't experiencing still an uptick in not only cases, but deaths.
Mhm.
And I would encourage everybody to wear masks every time you step out of your house or even in your house if you are living with somebody who is health compromised.
Okay. Elaine Wood said to the mayor, congrats on being one of 3 mayors in the state to have a say in how things will move forward across the state. Would you like to talk about that committee that you're on?
Yeah, I'm stunned that I was asked, and I'm really honored, and it's a great privilege. I will say, Easthampton, I just remember in my first state of the city and talking about I can make noise and bang on a table, and I'm going to make sure that Easthampton is at the table and have a voice. Fast forward to the pandemic, and then to be at that table is really intense. It's really intense. I'm learning so much, and can't wait to report out. It's humbling to be sitting at a table with the city of Boston, the city of Lawrence, folks from MIT, and truly be heard and say, you know what, that's not going to work for Easthampton, and that's not going to work for Westhampton, and there's like, please look at that data again, and Springfield, when you look at the number of cases in Springfield and the number of deaths, we really need to pay attention to that. And so it's a lot of people have texted me and they've emailed really great points and stuff that's super specific to something in their life, whether that's daycare, whether that's small businesses that do most of their business online. And right now it's the owner who can go in and fill those online orders while they're competing against Amazon that has thousands of employees, and trying to level that playing field as safely as possible. And I also appreciate the work we're doing so far on the commission. Both the governor and lieutenant governor have been extremely clear that safety is still first, public safety is still first. This is not a 0 to 90 process. It's just something that we need to start now to be ready and have some kind of a free floating phased approach as we go through the pandemic and the different stages. And that includes with the second wave. The second wave isn't a maybe, it's just a when. It's a when.
Next we have, can you talk about your Good Neighbors program?
So the Good Neighbors program is a bunch of volunteers and grew out really from folks who work with me on my platform as a candidate, and what we've been able to put into place so far in municipal government, following up directly on the vision. I feel like I've lost touch with that, especially being out of the office and not being out and about and seeing everybody. So it's been very helpful, and it certainly has infused some of the things, including these virtual town halls, of what the mayor's office and honestly working with City Council President Conniff and the councilors and also my department heads of what new government looks like, what new municipality. I mean, we're all, pretty close, 16,000 people. And it's pretty easy to get a hold of people. And whether that's even on social media or not, but if there's not a direct update to members of your government and the department heads, we all serve you. So it's an individual check-in, and it's been really helpful.
What is your view on a phased reopening? How long should that phasing be, and what milestones would you set to determine if we're ready for the next?
Yeah, I mean, so one, I would say that I look at the phased approach almost like waves that aren't attached to a date, but they're attached to data. And, you know, certainly looking at the number of new infections, number of hospitalizations, number of deaths, also taking a look at the number of resources to open too quickly or too big of a business or any business, and then we can't and put mandates on them around face coverings or taking temperatures. Good luck buying a non-touch thermometer right now under $150, and I know that there are a lot of scams going on out there too. So it's complicated, but those sort of things. And also we need to have availability and surety to get testing done, right? We got to get testing done. And what's the antibody? I think that if, like, when you're looking at it phases and waves, the last wave, right, when we're feeling, you know, good, I think people really need to understand the solution, and the last wave where everything goes to the new normal is one word: vaccine. And we are not expecting a vaccine. It, you know, 18 months would be delightful, but I think it's a little delusional, because once we find it, we've got to make enough of it so everyone has access.
Is there any data that points to clusters, like areas even in Easthampton, that are more problematic than others?
In Easthampton, you know, as far as clusters, we're so small, so we just become a cluster. You know, the concerning thing for me, and I haven't looked by address, I'm looking at cases and working with the Board of Health. A big data point for me is when we start seeing cases of folks who live in Easthampton, and it's not families, but it's neighbors, right? So, you know, you're the neighbors, and, you know, it's hard not to, you know, get together. You know, you talk about social distancing without masks. You know, you see people who have lots of space between them in a circle catching up, and, you know, and then, you know, start to map who gets COVID-19, or, you know, the assumption, I mean, if we have 50 cases, times that by 3 because of testing, and starting to see neighborhoods because people think if they're outside, it doesn't spread, or it's okay if you go to somebody's kitchen to get some cookies and walk out. I mean, it's just a high touch area. When we look at bigger cities, and the one that it was on something about on the New York Times about number of cases in hotspots. I think that there are different types of hotspots, right? So you look at Chelsea, Springfield is particularly alarming, where you see cases, and there are a lot of them. You would expect it. It's a big city. But when you see the rate of death, right, that is outside of the norms or other coalitions, that's not the scientific word, I forget, correlations between number of cases and deaths in bigger metro areas. And then you look at Springfield, you look at places in Iowa, like it's alarming, it's scary. So to say that the number of cases have plateaued or decreased, I think we need to think about not just 1 or 2 or 4 data points to figure out what's happening as far as a hotspot. We need a lot of information. And that's really, I mean, that's where this advisory board, but also the coalition with the mayors, and also different industries and daycare providers is so helpful, because they're seeing things on the ground where they start. And that's the solution here. So like up here is vaccine, and we got to get there. But right now, the information we're getting is literally on Main Street and Union Street and Cotton Street and Ferry Street of what the interactions are, and trying to narrow that down.
There are no more questions in the chat. If anyone would like to unmute yourselves, we have about 10 minutes left. And particularly we have our guests today, the city councilors, if you have any questions related to city council. Feel free to unmute yourself.
I have a question for city council.
Sure.
So the, yeah. So I plan to do is just like I did last year, the first meeting in May during mayor communications to put forward a proposed budget for the city council consideration. What's the plan, President Conniff, for the department meetings? Like, we go through each section of the budget, and how's that going to work? And when will people know how it's going to work, like with dates and times?
Right. So those meetings have been pre-scheduled, and I believe we're going to have 4 meetings with your department heads. I want to say May 11th, May 14th, May 18th, and May 21st. I may have one of those dates wrong, but typically how those meetings go is your department heads who have presented the budget to you will then present it to us for us to ask questions and determine the rationale behind some of their asks. And as a reminder to everyone on the call and anyone who may be watching this later, the city council cannot raise the budget. So if there's $100 in a line item, it can only go lower. We can't ask the mayor to make that $500, or because the city council, we don't have the authority to make the budget higher. We have the authority to either not approve it or request a reduction in a specific line item and vote for that reduction. So what we will be doing is me personally, and I know the finance committee and other councilors, we will be asking for the rationale around the numbers that are being presented, given the environment that they're in, given the needs of the business or the needs of the department or the needs of the city, and how that then could relate to what the rest of the year will look like. So I expect that this budget is going to be extremely conservative, and that at least that's where my mind takes me, that there will be no fat in this budget, and any money we have, we're going to need for probably later on. And then, I don't know after that, but we have several meetings that we'll be holding and scrutinizing the budget very heavily.
Yeah, and I would also, we talked a little bit of, I think at the last city council meeting, around, there are reports that automatically go out to city council and around not just expense, but revenue and the other side of the budget. So we'll be pushing out those reports monthly with a little more detail than what we're doing right now, because my budget presented to city council is one of how I think we should best spend municipal dollars. But the other side of this is revenue, and revenue is, property taxes and excise tax. It's state revenue, it's local aid, it's Chapter 70, which is education, Chapter 90, and those are very fluid. The state has already said that the fiscal year, their state fiscal budget for 2021 will be delayed in process. So I don't know what that means. The auditor is working really hard to figure out revenues and forecasting, which is near impossible. We do get reports from the collector on where we are through the year. We're 3/4 through the year, so about 75% of our revenue should be collected. So, the great place we are now with collections, I anticipate will go down starting next month, and I can't even imagine what the fall looks like. I do want to mention one thing. Joe Landers, I don't know if she's on the call, but she also followed up with an email. I said that we would post very clearly on different web pages, department web pages, about late fees. So there was confusion in the language around late fees and how that relates to collections. And I am working on a more complete document that takes into effect recent legislation passed, and also rules and regulations given to us by the Department of Revenue. So in a confusing time with a lot of unknowns, I seem to have done a pretty good job at confusing that issue even more. And I'm working on correcting it and getting out a document for everyone. So thank you, Joe, for keeping me on top of that, pointing out the contradictory messaging that's coming out of City Hall. But I just want to assure, around taxes, collections, and late fees, we are putting together a policy that encompasses all the regulatory advice and mandates. Yeah. I know we're getting short of time. I do want to say, I think next week, and if not next week, soon, I've invited Representative Dan Carey to join this town hall to give us a state level view. There is a lot of legislation on the state level that for relief and direction to municipalities. And, you know, I think it's important to get Representative Carey, he's more than willing to do it, on this call to take questions and kind of talk about what's going on and what the state plans. Maybe he can give us some insight onto collections on the state level too. And I would also say, I just looked at my weather app, and Saturday is going to be beautiful, and Sunday's looks like it's going to be great too. And to respond to that, the Board of Health has put together, and actually Council Zaret has been doing a little marketing for us and hashtagging and signs. Thank you. You'll see a new public education program coming out around covering nose and mouth, as well as we will have patrols on the bike path, not to hand out tickets. They're going to hand out masks. So, you know, I can't promise Gino's going to be there, but you will see you know, some of our patrols on the bike path and in big public areas where people are likely to walk to and congregate, and they have masks for anybody who want them. They're going to be free, and you're going to see a lot more public distributions of face coverings. You know, and if folks would like a mask, we have a small supply at 50 Payson. My understanding is we have more coming. You can also email the health and Bree at the health department, or give a call to my office, and we can track hopefully some face coverings down for you.
Owen, would you like to chime in?
Sorry.
I mean, I'm just honored to be able to participate, and I've never met a hashtag challenge that I didn't like. So yeah. It has been really fun. Thank you for mentioning it, Mayor. It's been fun working in coordination with the our exceptional health agent Bree, making some of the hashtags that you're seeing on the signs, and there is a infographic that hopefully will be coming out soon. Just waiting for some designs from the printer to reinforce social distancing, staying at home, and wearing masks when you go out. So yeah, thanks for letting me participate in that.
That was easy.
I just want to do one quick shout out before we end, and that is a reminder of the special election on May 19th.
Yes.
And that if you have not gotten your mail-in ballot, please, please, please request one. It is as easy as writing on a piece of paper, I would like a mail-in ballot, assigning it and putting it in the drop box at the city. You don't necessarily have to download the form and print it and all of that. just write a note, sign it, and Barb will take care of it. So it's really easy. I highly recommend it. I've received mine and it's on its way back to Barb. Pretty easy. And you won't have to go out in public on May 19th, which I also understand our polls will be open, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, okay, that's it.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Easthampton Media for excellent moderation. I wish you were on every single Zoom call I have to be on. Exemplary. And oh, there's Patra. So thank you again, Rep. Carey. If anyone has an idea or information that you would like to see on these virtual town halls, please let Jen or Peg or myself know. We want these town halls to be as helpful as possible.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Stay safe, stay home.
Take care.